Have you ever really loved an animal more than a pet? Wombats are always going to have their special part in my heart because the very first animal I adopted is a wombat. That was the first thing I ever hand raised. I'm the snake artist. I'm a wildlife artist, and I have set up this screen printing art studio to undemonize wildlife. Wild morning. I'm going into print. So the first wombat I hand raised, her name was Batty, and she was the marsupial that I learnt how to care for marsupials with. So here I had this baby little wombat, had no idea what to do with, and so phoned another carer that I knew. They mentored me through. I absolutely adored and loved this little cute wombat. The feeling was stronger than I would have with just a pet. And the idea is that it wasn't a pet. The idea was to get it back out into the wild. I was there doing what a wombat mother would do. And a wombat mother would look after the baby, but then let it go out into the world. So Batty had become part of the family. She's just like this beautiful wombat that my kids were playing with. Everyone enjoyed her. She had her funny little ways. She'd want to have playtime. She'd run around like a crazy thing sometimes. So we'd say she's gone batty. But then other times when she'd rest, she would sometimes just lay on her back and rest. And sometimes when she did that on the couch, she looked like a little human baby. She's so cute. So as I screen print these wombat shirts, I often just have fond memories of all the wombats that I've hand raised. I've loved all of them. There's been about 12 that I hand raised, and each one is beautiful. They are beautiful, beautiful animals. They only gained protection in the 90s. Before that, people were able to kill them. They used to see them as a pest. So I'd fallen in love with this beautiful wombat, and she grew, and we were working on what's called a soft release, which meant that she could just come and go from our house. After a while, we didn't keep her in a cage. We had plenty of bush and paddocks and things behind where we lived, so she could wander off and just be a natural wombat. And this was probably the most stressful time I had as a wombat mother. I had to let it go. It was sort of sad because I built up such a rapport and such a loving relationship with this animal. It was really hard to do the right thing and to let her go. There was a time when I didn't see her for weeks, and then suddenly she'd show up again, come in for a cuddle, and then wander off. Then I wouldn't see her for another few days. After about 3 weeks, I thought, this is it, she's finally gone. She's out of my life, which should have led to a little bit of sadness. I thought, she's just out there being a wombat, doing what wombats do. One night it rained really heavy. The weather was really wild. It was really, really rough, and there was a real downpour. During the night I heard this banging noise, and it was the wombat breaking into my house. And I heard this pitter-patter of wet, soggy feet running down the hallway, finding where my bed was, and then climbing up into bed with me. I had this wombat completely covered in mud coming in for this great big hug. I mean, she was like this big at the time, coming in for this big muddy cuddle in my bed. Of course, all the bed sheets were wet and muddy, but you know, I just didn't care. I was so happy to see her. So what wombats do is they stay close to mum, and they usually dig a burrow sort of within the proximity of where mum's burrow is. They dig down at an angle like this, and their first burrow usually fills up with water, and so they're getting all wet and they're feeling miserable. They come out, they're all completely covered in mud. They usually go back to mum. But when they go back to the burrow, they go up and along. So a lot of wombat burrows sort of go like that. So there's an entrance, goes in, and there's often a little bit of a puddle down there. That's quite a common thing you see in wombat burrows. I often think of my sweet baby wombat who grew up to be hopefully a mother wombat out in the wild somewhere, and it's been so long now that she's passed away, which makes me a little bit sad. It does feel good to do some hands-on practical work to save at least one animal, because one animal can reproduce and make more animals.